A judge now has to decide whether the suspect in a 2020 murder that left a 63-year-old man dead downtown is competent to stand trial. One evaluation conducted shortly after the crime found Travis Wilson competent, while a more recent one said he was not. Live 5's Elijah Brown explains why testimony from today could play a major role in what happens next for him.
Yeah, that's right. Judge Young is facing a pretty difficult decision today. At the heart of today's testimony lies a simple but significant question. Has Travis Young's mental capacity been misunderstood for years, or do previous examinations hold more merit? The court heard testimony from Dr. Christopher, a board-certified forensic psychologist who evaluated Wilson in October of 2025. She said her findings were based on years of records and her own evaluation of Wilson, pointing to multiple IQ tests showing scores around 55, well below the threshold typically associated with intellectual disability. She also cited Wilson's history in special education classes, his inability to obtain a GED, and what she describes as significant limitations in understanding the court process. According to her testimony, Wilson struggled to explain why he was in court, relied more heavily on his parents than his attorneys, and was unable to consistently retain court concepts even after they were repeatedly explained to him during multiple meetings. Now, based on those findings, Dr. Christopher did testify that Wilson was not competent to stand trial and is extremely unlikely to be restored to competency.
For Mr. Wilson, his scores were actually, I believe the most recent one was in the 0.3 percentile, which is, if I'm saying the lowest 2% of the population, he's kind of more than halfway down that curve towards the tail, saying that only 99% of people are going to function higher than he is in terms of his cognitive functioning.
Now, the defense challenged that conclusion, pointing to evaluations conducted closer to the time of the crime that found Wilson competent. Attorneys argued those conflicting findings raise important questions about how Wilson could be considered competent years ago, but now incompetent today. The defense also asked the court to allow an independent evaluation, noting that the assessments discussed so far were all conducted through state-appointed processes, and Judge Young did not issue a ruling from the bench today, but he is going to take the next coming weeks to review testimony, review the motion, and issue a decision accordingly. Reporting in downtown Charleston, Elijah Brown, Live 5 News.